Oh my god, it's DED-EN.
On this week's episode, I make a cube and some growls in Massive. When I was a kid, I used to play this beat making game called Button Beats, now called Button Bass. Each button on a cube would play a different loop, and as you press more buttons, they'd all come together to create a song. I thought it'd be really cool to recreate that idea while bringing back the nostalgic old school dubstep vibes those loops had. I start by adding an array modifier to the default cube, then add another modifier to copy and extend the cubes outwards, then adding one more array modifier to build the cubes up. I wanted to create a glass material but didn't know how, so I watched a YouTube video and copied everything in the video. I wasn't sure how I wanted to light the cube, so I experimented with the sphere to make it look like the cube had a glowing core, but I wasn't feeling it, so I deleted it. Adding another cube, I subdivided it 2 times, then added a wireframe modifier to only keep the edges. I scaled up the frame to fit in the gaps of the main cube. Then added the mesh I made for the sphere I deleted. And this was the result. This was worse than the sphere, so I deleted it too. Now my thinking is to add a few planes into the gaps, and maybe they'll shine through the glass cubes better than my previous 2 attempts. I was happy with the result, so I decided to move on to building the scene. I copied the cube, added a new material, and changed the color. I then copied the new cube 3 more times and placed them around the scene. I added a few keyframes on the X and Y sliders to animate them, and this is what I got. In Ableton, I started off making a filtered saw bass, a dreamy pluck, this virtual riot pluck, and a riser/impact. Making a MIDI clip and throwing some hi-hats into a drum rack, I made a basic dubstep shuffle. Then added a kick, snare, and a crash on every quarter note. I flipped the snare's tail to feel like it's bringing you back into the next hit. I copied over the arrangement and start preparing to create the drop. Adding a temporary drum pattern, I get started on my first growl. To get the old dubstep sound, I'm using Massive. I've never used it to make growls, so this is a first for me. Using the performer curves, I create a pattern and assign it to the knobs that sounded good when moved by my mouse. What really made this sound is the modulation oscillator. Turning on phase for oscillator 2 and adding the performer to the knob. Here's the result. I copied over the hi-hats and changed the pattern and then change the growl notes to go from low to high. Now I'm going to create a cooker lead. Turn on tube distortion, pitch oscillator 2 down and oscillator 1 up. Bring down the level and decay on envelope 1. Drag envelope 1 to the pitch of oscillator 1 and 2, then take those down an octave. Now I'm adding the kick with a new rhythm for the drop. Copy the growl patch and mess with the performer curves to get a new sound. I finish the lead and bring back in the ARP from the intro. Using the MIDI from the saw bass, I copy the growl patch and mess with the performer curves again to make a longer growl. I added chords to help support the lead. Then giving them some width with the pitch cutoff fader. Now I add in sidechaining. I do some EQing, then add cymbals and a wub bass to the intro. After watching the animation from yesterday, I wasn't vibing with it at all, so I deleted the cubes while keeping the main cube. Adding a plane and an array modifier, I start to create the floor. Then I adjust the camera to fit the cube and my scene. I use the material from the cubes I deleted for the floor and adjust a few settings. I adjust the lighting, and here's what I got so far. I really didn't like the shadow that was being cast, so I spent a lot of time moving the light and camera, seeing what worked best for the scene. Now I'm thinking that I should add walls behind the cube so that the light reflects off of them and will fill out the scene a little more. Time to make the audio visualizer. I add a plane and moved it into place. Then add an array, solidify, and bevel modifier. Then copy it over to the other side and add a material. Once again, I try adding a spear inside the cube, but was not working out. So I added a cube and really liked how it looked. I then cleaned up the edges of the main cube with a bevel modifier and adjusted the lighting again. Following a YouTube video, I was able to create fog and give my scene some depth. But there was a problem. I couldn't see it as there wasn't enough light to reflect off the fog. So I added area lights behind the corners of the cube, and this really helped out. I wanted to figure out the lighting for inside the cube, so by adding a smaller cube, I was able to finally get the look I wanted. Then copied that to all the others. My goal is to make each cube light up, just like the original in button bass. On day 3, I had to go to San Antonio, which is about 2 hours away, then came back home to get ready for a mariachi gig in the evening. When I got back, I just slept and didn't work on anything. I get to creating the string spectrum thing. I don't even know what to call it, but it looks cool. Again, I followed a YouTube video because I really don't know what I'm doing. Since I only have one more day left, I needed to start figuring out the animation. Using sound to samples, I was able to load in my song and have the keyframes follow the song. It took a while, but I finally understood how the F-curve modifiers work, and this is the result. Back in Ableton, I messed with this wub for a bit. Then add automation. I then add a dedicated sub bass, then fix the arrangement a bit. I start building the B section of the drop, copying over my wub bass and changing a few things. I spent so much time on this bass for it to sound exactly the same at the end. Then I copy the wub bass again and turn it into a sub while keeping the movement of the performer curves. Now doing more arranging and adding an outro. I start fixing the hi-hats, doing some EQing, and start building the final half of the B section. I wanted this part to have that old Zomboy and Skrillex sound, so I used techniques I learned from watching old Virtual Riot studio times and whatever knowledge I had on my sound design. You'll hear this part when I show the final song at the end. Day 5 started out with me exporting all my drums, synths, and basses out as groups. I then sliced up those groups as each one was going to be used to automate a cube in Blender. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and consider subscribing for more content like this. Now for the final reveal.